Last Sunday, I began my sermon by asking a rhetorical question. What do you say to someone whose world as they have known it has just come crushing down? What do you say to someone whose world as they have known it has come crashing down all around? I went on to talk about those disciples cowering in that upstairs room in that house in Jerusalem the morning after Easter. Later in the day on Easter, actually. They had left their homes, they had left their jobs, they had left their families, they had followed Jesus over half the countryside, they had risked their lives literally in defying the forces in the streets of Jerusalem, and it had all ended in disaster. So we find them locked in that room, asking one another, what are we going to do? I did not know when I preached that sermon that in less than 48 hours I would talk to two people whose world had crashed around. Two sad, sad people. Their lives had been dramatically altered, and as the world as they had come to know it disintegrated, they did not know what they were going to do. It was a mental and a spiritual disaster. The second person I talked to, I asked the question at the end of the conversation, what are you going to do now? And her answer was, I guess I'll go to the office. I'll go to the office. I have work to do. It was Peter who said, I'm going fishing. There were other fishermen. He knew that. He was going to go do what he knew what to do. He was going to go back to a very simple time and do something he was comfortable doing, because that, in his mind, was all that was left. And so in this morning's gospel, we see the disciples, all of the fishermen disciples, following Peter, who's going fishing. Now, the way you fished, net fishing, and they still do this, is you get in the water up to your chest with long nets, and you drag them, catching fish, hopefully, as you go along in water up to your shoulders. And that's what they did. On shore, they spot a figure sitting beside a fire, cooking fish and bread. It's John who says, it's him. It's really him. It's Jesus. The figure does two things. First, he invites him to breakfast. But first, if you will cast your nets over there, you'll catch some fish. How practical can you get? That's exactly what they do. They haul in the nets, they move closer, they cast the nets again, and sure enough, they begin to catch fish. 153. Don't you find that fascinating? That right there in Scripture is the total number of fish they caught. I mean, where's the game warden? I fish all day and catch 2 trout. 153. That's not a coincidence. It is an abundance. It is highly unusual. It's a way of saying what follows is about life. And it's about abundant life. He invites them to come eat breakfast. If there's anybody uncomfortable at that breakfast, it is Peter. Jesus feeds them. That's the first thing. He's assured that with their catch, they will have money in their pockets at the end of the day. And then he says to Peter, "Come walk down the beach with me." You can imagine what might be going through Peter's mind at that invitation. He says okay, but he really doesn't want to. Because you see, Peter is guilty of sin. He has denied Jesus, denied Him publicly, denied Him to the authorities, not once, not twice, but 3 times. When the captain of the guard asked him, "Aren't you with him?" his answer is, "I don't know the man." I expect his level of guilt was about as high as it could get. They walk away, and Jesus says to Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, I love you." "Then feed my lambs." They continue walking, and then after a while Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, I love you." "Then feed my sheep." They go a ways further, and a third time Jesus turns to Peter and says, "Peter, do you love me?" Peter is exasperated. Peter says, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." "Then feed my sheep." Have you ever disappointed someone you cared about a great deal? Have you ever failed to speak up when confronted with a situation that you knew to be wrong and you kept quiet? Have you ever promised to love someone till the day of their death and you have not? I think we've all been there. And we've all done that. We've all been in Peter's shoes and walked in his footsteps. You see, he's given Peter back first of all, his own self-image. And he's given him another whole shot at life. And he's given him, most of all, the relationship. Bishop Wright, in his weekly commentary, summed it up about as well as I have seen it. And I share it with you in closing. He writes, if Peter got a second chance on that first Easter morning, so can we. This is the Easter message. You are more than your worst day. And so is the individual group of people you struggle to love. You are more than the pain you have suffered or caused. You are redeemable because you're beloved. You are beloved because God says you are, not because of what you can or have done or accomplished. Maybe that's why so many folks show up on Easter morning, because they know that Easter belongs to them, because they know they belong to Easter.